of recession are growing, showing up in the stock market.
GDP, first look, first quarter, is a nasty minus 1.4.
Gas prices, shocking drivers at the pump.
People can't afford to pay their bills.
Inflation is much too high.
A recession is when your neighbor loses his job.
If you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
The most important thing to remember is not to panic. We've helped our clients through this before, and we're going to get through it again.
Everyone, regardless of your stage in life, is impacted by recession. With the proper plan, we're going to get through this together.
Welcome to our podcast series, The Recession Survival Guide. I'm Michael Smith.
And I'm Scott Bishop.
Scott, you may have seen in the news, recession. It's looming. It's in every social media, newspaper. People are starting to talk about it. And we're trying to figure out what exactly is that? What exactly is a recession?
Well, you know, the last time we had a more normal recession, it was a deep recession, was during the Great Recession, the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009. We saw the economy slowed down. We saw businesses slow down. We saw people losing their jobs. We saw people losing their houses. We saw 401ks turn into 201ks. Everyone was scared. It was impacting their current daily living. It was impacting their emergency funds. It was impacting their long-term financial plans, and people were just scared.
So, Scott, with this series, the Recession Survival Guide, what are some of the things we're looking to cover?
Well, we're going to cover a lot of things, but it's really going to be, what does a recession mean to you? And when I say you, I mean everyone listening to this podcast series that may be at different stages in life. Of course, we'll cover the general things. What should you do about your portfolio? What should you do about your finances? But what I realized when I wrote this article back in 2019, and I started thinking and putting the framework together, a recession means something very different to people in different economic stages or different stages in life. So if you think about it, like our children that are now just entering the workforce, a recession means something very specific to them. If I lose my job, what's going to happen about my apartment and my car? Very different things, but very immediate. Then you get to that next stage in life. It's maybe a young family with children. They're saying, now I have to support a family. Maybe I have a spouse that works or doesn't work. I have kids that want to go to college, maybe paying for private school. What does that mean both in the intermediate, but now I'm thinking a little bit more long term. Then you get to people like us, you and I, Mike, we're empty nesters. We have the kids partly or mostly off the payroll right now. We're now trying to save for retirement. We're now looking at the future, and we're thinking about, what does this really mean for my financial plan? The next stage would be something like, I'm near retirement. Like when we wrote the Retirement Survival Guide, we're nearing that summit of Mount Everest, looking down saying, can we retire? And is this going to kibosh our retirement plan and not allow us to retire? And then sometimes the most scared people already in retirement, when they see their investment accounts declining while they're spending. The time when they say, I can't take any more risk, let's put it all to cash. So when we talk about this Recession Survival Guide, we have to really think about where they are and give people specific guidelines to try to help them think through and be able to succeed or at least survive this next recession that we're going to be going through. Well,
the word recession is a fearful word. I mean, as a matter of fact, after the 1929 crash, they replaced depression, because that was a much worse saying, with recessions. And that's what we're talking about now. But we've been through many recessions in our career. We've seen long extended ones like the 2008 that you mentioned. We saw the pandemic, probably the fastest recession recovery we've seen. But all recessions are not the same. They all have some similarities, but they have different stripes. And I think that's going to mean different things to different people at different stages. And I'll just kind of tell a story. I remember being, a young boy. I had a passenger seat to an entrepreneur. My father, he owned an oil and gas service business. And we were not only booming bus cycles, but seeing a recession, what that meant to me as a child growing up was my father had nice cars. We went to nice restaurants and we traveled well. All of a sudden, we're not going out to eat. We're driving a used car, and a lot of things are tight around the house. And I mean, that's the reality of what that felt like growing up. And of course, now we've seen many since the time of our youth and how that affects different people. So I think we're going to attempt to talk to people about how to really plan for this in a good way.
And kind of like when we wrote, when we were at Vidian Wealth, and we actually wrote our layoff survival guide, right. When you're dealing with times of stress, typically that leads to different emotions. It could be fear, it could be loss, it could be anxiety. What we do know in terms of the financial planning process here at Vidian Wealth is that when people are making decisions when they're emotional, those decisions tend to not be optimal. They think about short term, not long term. They try to, fight or flight. They try to get away from the fear versus dealing with the fear. And through this process of going through the Recession Survival Guide, we'll try to give people ammunition, some good things to think about so they can think about it thoughtfully in terms of their intermediate and long-term financial plans, so they don't put their long-term financial and retirement plans at risk because of fear they're dealing with today with the decline, market decline. And you talked about the Great Depression. The tongue-in-cheek difference between recession and depression, Mike. It's a recession when a lot of people are losing their jobs, kind of like we saw here in Houston in 2015. It's a depression when you lose your job.
Exactly.
So people that are going to be dealing with recession, the possibility of significant life change or job loss, will be the people at most impacted, most affected, and possibly make bad decisions.
Well, and of course, if you look at the academia, right, 2 declining quarters of GDP, gross domestic product, that's when the National Bureau of Economic Research comes out and declares there's a recession. But you and I both know, been in this business long enough, the last thing you want to do is wait for them to declare the recession. Everything has happened beforehand. So that's why you got to prepare before that. And I think that's what we're going to decide to do and try to help everyone do, is prepare before that.
That's correct. Let's prepare like the ant, not react like the grasshopper and starve in winter.